About yourself. Give me a little background.
Well, first of all, my name is Linda Darlene Lang. My previous name was Linda Lang Clasher, which is what I'm known in the work industry. I come from a family of nine, of which there were six brothers and two sisters. So my mother had three girls and six boys. And growing up in that type of atmosphere was actually pretty good. My brothers taught me how to be strong. They taught me how to fight. They taught me that I wanted to be competitive because I thought that they couldn't do anything better than I could. And just growing up, I graduated from high school, but I was pregnant after I came out of high school. And I had my son at 18. And I managed to get a job right out of high school and work 4 months because it wasn't obvious that I was pregnant. And I saved every dollar I had, paid for my son's hospital bill, paid for all the clothing that he needs, and lived at home. Living at home with my mother while she watched the soaps forced me to say, I can't do this anymore. I can't stand this. I have to get me a job. So I ended up going out in the industry and started to get a job, which was easy for me because actually I thought I was very intelligent. I always had great grades. And I went to work in the industry, and I was a clerical. I started off a clerical job.
Okay. Around about what year would you say that was?
2000 and 1970. February 2nd, 1970.
Okay, that's around about the time I'm doing the Sex Discrimination Act, which was 1975. What are some personal events in which you encountered that led up to around about the Sex Discrimination Act of 1975?
In 1970, when I started work, you can tell this was a man's world. There were no women in high positions. They just do clerical, typing, administrative assistant jobs. That's only the job functions that they had. I recognized that I could grasp and learn anything quickly, and I was good at it. And that encouraged me to want to get other jobs. I eventually had a job as the administrative assistant for the president of the company. It was a great job. It was great exposure. And he encouraged me to go to school. And he told me to go to school. He said, because you're smart. And he allowed me to leave one of those days in lunchtime, and I took one of the tests at Essex Community College. And I decided I'm going back to school. And I started registering and started taking 6 credits, even though I still had a child to raise, and I was still single and still living at home. And this is how I started.
Okay. Now, would you say there was a difference once they passed the Sex Discrimination Act of 1975, in which made it unlawful to discriminate on grounds of sex in recruitment, promotion, and training? Would you say that it made a big change within society?
I think women were they were protesting. They were marching for women's rights. Even though that law was passed, you still have today in 2012 that women are still not getting treated equally. They don't have equal play. They may do they may have the same job, but they're getting less than the male counterpart. So it may have put them in the forefront to at least attempt to get jobs. They get the jobs, but they don't get the salaries. Women are probably more women out there in with higher education. They're pursuing higher education than there are the men. So we outnumber them in getting education. I think today, comparing 1970s to today's workforce, you will find that they, the men acknowledge that they have to have more women in the workforce. So you'll find that there are more women in managerial positions than there ever have been, comparing to 75 when they passed it. Because that law was passed but you have to have men willing to accept and adapt. And remember, men made the laws.
Right.
So if you can't adapt to it, and it's difficult for men to accept a woman on the same level as a man. So that's a progressional law that took time and years to enable these women to get what they need.
Right. Well, how would you say that this has affected women globally? Because I do understand that you have traveled with your job and everything.
I have traveled, and because my company became global, I determined that in traveling and going to Paris and Italy, the women weren't being treated equally. They give them the impression that they give them 80% they can take off the 9 months off the pregnancy leave and get 80% of their salaries, and the women think this is a great deal. But they tell me, but they say we can never make as much money than they can. But what's that benefit have to do with it? If you should get 8 months, even if you had it, you should still be able to get the same salary as a man because you got the same education, you have the same type of job. Why should they get paid more? Because they have to raise a family. You can actually have to raise a family and be single or be divorced and still have to raise your family. You need money just like they do. It's no different. Shouldn't be any different. And we're just as smart and capable of doing those jobs.
Well, I would say you battle with not only being a woman but also a black woman. How would you explain that?
Being a black woman is it's a double sword. You have the negativity that you're black or African American, and they seem to give jobs more to the white counterparts. And it's not just the African Americans that have the problem; it's also the Hispanics. They encounter the same thing as the African American. So, unfortunately, not to say this in a negative tone, but I was told by an African American male who said the Hispanics are just like the African Americans. We're classified in the same way, so they're going to treat us in the same category. They're going to mistreat us and not give us the ability, the opportunity to get those jobs. Yet we have the ability to do them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in 1970, not knowing I had education forced me to get higher education because I was training people that who had the degrees, but you can have book sense, but don't have common sense to do a job. So even though they had the degrees, they were incapable of managing the job, yet I could do it. So I had to go out there and get my degree. And it may have taken me years, but the progression in pursuing my degree, I was able to become an assistant vice president. And then even at the time when I had a craniotomy because of an aneurysm, I was able to get a vice presidency position while I'm on sick leave.
Mm-hmm.
So there's recognition that's there, but it's a hard progression. It's difficult because you have to be twice as smart as that white counterpart, then and do that job and work twice as hard as that individual. Although we think that there are opportunities out there, you're still going to come across racism. You're going to come across discrimination, and you're going to come across individuals who are in positions of managing people that they don't look at you as your ability because they have issues themselves, which is racism or discrimination, that you have to deal with. And you have to find yourselves to work around that in order to accomplish what you need. And that is to prove that you're just as capable as anybody else to be becoming.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I really do appreciate your time doing this interview. Is there anything else you would like to say in regards to the Sex Discrimination Act of 1975 and up to date?
But never let anybody tell you you're less than what you're thinking you are because you're just as capable. You have the ability. You can do it. And all you have to do is prove it to them.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome, Miss Lang. You can back it up. Yeah, yeah. Okay.